Okay, I'm going to get started. If you have questions, please save them for the end because I will go off on a tangent and we'll never leave. So, well, welcome. Like I said before, if you do a search for UCSB menu, you'll find this application, or there's the URL for it. That's an L, APPL. No, my clicker's not working. I know. It was working a second ago, of course. And that's making noise. All right. So, question, who is an internet-enabled mobile device? I got one here, I got a tablet, right? So probably most of us has those. I bet every UC student has one, and probably their preferred method of getting on the internet. It's, you know, they're using their laptops when they're studying and things like that, but when they're out running around, they got their phone on them. I'm going to walk you through how we took menu data that was locked away in a vendor application and turned it into a resource that was accessible by any device. And then you can take some of these approaches back to your campus and do the same. Who here supports like dining, for example, or residential services? Anybody there? So well, we got one that's directly related, but you can kind of apply this approach to kind of any kind of you know, data kind of locked away. So I'm Gary Scott. UCCSC is almost over. Thanks for coming in here. I'm a business systems developer at UCSB's Administrative and Residential Information Technology Department, which is a mouthful. We call it ARIT. So we support housing, residential dining, and then all the stuff in administrative services like police, HR, our university center, environmental health and safety, things like that. This is my roadmap for the talk today. So it's 7 quick little sections, and I broke it up. So we're going to start with the past and, well, also some of the present. UCSB has 4 residential dining commons. These are buffet style, all-you-can-eat facilities geared towards students living in university housing. There's also options for staff and off-campus students and guests too. Our residential dining department uses Seaboard for to manage their menus and their food ordering and all that stuff. So Seaboard makes a big suite of products. They use a couple of them internally. So the data we have, because when they do their food ordering and all that stuff, it's already they've used a system to already manage all that. I think some other campuses use Food Pro, and I don't know quite what all of them use. But, about 5 years ago, we set up Net Nutrition, which is one of Seaboard's products. It's a web app to basically look at the menu data, but also more importantly is to actually look at nutritional information and also things like allergens and stuff like that. There's a separate, for Net Nutrition, there's a separate desktop version and there's a separate mobile version. And so that's what you see on the mobile version. So that redirects you basically redirect you based on and right here, you see that function here, and then this takes about 5 or 6 points. You click on the icon, you click on the page, click on the meal, you're really drilling to get to it. And it's kind of ugly, at least. Well, this one's a little prettier. This is the hard one. Yuck. And then I've only been there for a couple of years, but I learned 12 years ago, before this installed Net Nutrition, they were putting PDFs. So they've generated these PDFs manually, and they would upload them to the housing website, and that's what you see over in the right over there. And those are manually generated using a report out of Seaboard's, I don't know which product, it's called Event Master or something like that. So then somebody always has to do it manually, and they also got to be generated every couple of days because the menu changes as the days go along. So over the years, we've had many students request access. Hey, we want to get this menu data. So, you know, we want to be able to make it more accessible. We want to write an app for it or something like that. Currently, there's actually a few unsanctioned iOS and Android apps in the marketplace. So if you kind of look in the App Store, you'll see something in there, which we learned the students went and created that stuff, and they actually scraped the PDF data. I know I see the user logs. It's kind of crazy. A lot of network bandwidth too. So what you could do is you can look at your campus and see, what you have there, and if there's a vendor app, what the shortcomings is of it and how it can be improved. Now we'll go on to the second part of our roadmap. I want to talk about data. The Seaboard database that we have is hosted internally by our department. It's a very complex database, as expected. You look at it, it's all the different tables and all the foreign keys and all that stuff. We poked around there for a little bit, but it's like you can't reverse engineer it. You can't. It would take weeks, months to figure it all out. And then we also asked the vendor for an API. Hey, can we just get a quick little thing into the data? And they said, oh, it's gonna be. It was an astronomical amount they gave us. And it's just a thing they would sell to other people too. So, oh, forget you. So we kind of let it lay for a while. Then, one day, my manager emails me this SQL statement. It points to a view I've never seen before. I run it, and my jaw hits the floor. It had every piece of data we needed. It had the day, the dining common, the meal, the course, the name of the food item. Just all right there, all simple, laid out, all normalized. Where the source of this SQL came from was this report that our nutritionist had, and she used this Excel report to look for allergens. And my manager had discovered this and actually went through and said, well, let me look at that. Let me look at the SQL query for that under the hood. And so that's where she found it and went and emailed me. So that was huge. That was the moment that opened the floodgates. So that was, okay, we got a query. We can actually hit the data. We can actually pull what we need, and we can do what we want with it. So what you can do back at your campus is you can explore your source of data. If you got your system locked away, if you have the database, maybe there's some APIs into it, you can kind of try to dig into it somehow to see, hey, how can we get that stuff out, Because exactly, if it's a SQL database, if you can get a query into it off to the side, then you've got what you need. So the next step is proof of concept. I call it the land of discovery, right? It's the most fun phase, or it's the most frustrating based on how it goes. So then the next step was, let me display it in a web page, right? Got a SQL database, let's get in the web page, right? That's A to B, or end-to-end testing, right? So in this was an early concept of it. Basically, you just see the data was listed out. Did a little bit of grouping by dining common. The dining commons are named like Korea. So very easy to do with normal web development tools. Then I kind of had to say, okay, I got to group on stuff, right? I got to work on grouping. Take the tabular data, turn into collections, right? A dining common contains many meals, which contain many courses, which contain many food items. But once I had that kind of figured out, it was like, okay, now we need to shift away from the data and work on the user experience, because the shape of the data all depended on how we're going to present it to the user. So it wasn't like, oh, let's do all this work on the back end if we were going to have to format it differently. So, but I'll talk about collaboration in a minute, because that was a big part of how the UI was going to look like. So, and a goal from the beginning was to make this mobile friendly, right? So responsive web design was in order. And hopefully a lot of you are familiar, but responsive web design is where there's a single web page, and as the device width shrinks, the site will morph around using CSS to make it fit well to that device. Instead of doing like a mobile site and a regular site and all that kind of stuff. So then what I did is I put together several mock-ups displaying the menu information and different configurations. There's lots of ways to accomplish that. You can use in the old days, I've seen people do Photoshop. You got a graphic designer, he does a Photoshop mock-up, does it all in there. You can use some sophisticated mock-up tool. There's wireframe tools out there. If you went to the UX is a mindset yesterday, there were some cool wireframe tools that I actually learned about. So, but for me, I'm an HTML guy. HTML quick and dirty for me was the easiest way to do kind of a mock-up. So then what I did is I put several ones out there. I put up a page like this, and I had linked to them, and I did a lot of description. So then this is what we gave out to different people to review. And we had to spell out things like, this is not real data. This is the mock-up. Filtering's not functional. Kind of like, just give us your feedback on what these little widgets look like. So then from that, it was kind of like I had to get some feedback, and then we had to figure out who would be involved in the end, right? So at some point, you have to get together the people that are going to kind of, work on this and get it and bring it to fruition. So, and the proof of concepts, mock-ups, all this stuff is a very important step. You need to find out what's viable, what's going to work before you put a lot of energy into your project. I don't know about you, but I got 100 things to do, and I don't want to waste my time working on something that's going to be a dead end. So quick and dirty little mock-ups kind of get you in the right direction without having to throw away a lot of work. Next step is to work with others. Got to collaborate with the business side of the house. So keep the team small. You've heard the term design by committee, right? So you find the few people that must be involved and work with them closely. I worked with the nutritionist, as she was the owner of the menu data. And then we also got some input from the graphic designer, colors, fonts, things like that. If you see on the site, it's kind of green. Green is like the theme for all the dining related stuff. There's different departments for the housing. Dining's green, housing is kind of orange and that kind of stuff. So we got those font colors from him. And then once in a while, when we worked together, the nutritionist would then run it up her chain of command to the director of dining services to make sure we were kind of going on the right path, And but I let her handle that. We use GitHub for source control and issue tracking. I had my collaborators open GitHub accounts so that they can directly interact with the issue tracker. We use this as much as possible. Everything was broken down into workable, closable items. Issues were created and they can be discussed right here. Issues can be bugs or enhancements or even questions. It works best to capture the issue in GitHub or even some other issue track that you have. Rather than, otherwise you have like an email thread going back and forth and stuff gets all lost and all that kind of stuff. So we kept directing people to here. It's like kind of like when somebody calls your help desk or it gives you an email, you say, hey, just open a support ticket. Very kind of similar, but this was for control. So this is actually one of our repos for it, and then you can actually dining comments order not correct when search filter is applied, right? Very obvious bug. So let's see. So basically what we do is we put all this stuff in here, stuff we wanted to do. Early on, it was what do we wanted to do? And then once we started doing some of that, then we had the bugs that came out of it. So we grouped those together into, a milestone. If you're familiar with kind of Scrum Agile stuff, you group 20 of these together into one thing you want to do. You work on that, you get to that point, you take a look at it some more, you review it, and then you plan for the next milestone. So doing this allowed us to try things out, change them. A good idea on a whiteboard may not work in the real world, especially when you have like, oh, this is what it looks like. And then when you actually launch it and put it on the phone, you're like, oh, I can't, that's too small. I can't click on that. It's impossible to work on it. So then you can kind of go back because you didn't go down too far down a path. So my takeaway from that is basically you need to find your champions, build your relationships, talk often, and make something great. There's people out there that really want this. They really try hard to make something better, and then you use them to help get things done. So we'll talk about tools next. Not too much because that's kind of the boring part actually of it. So basically the off-the-shelf stuff is what I use. I got some more quotes for you, right? Stand on the shoulder of giants. Don't reinvent the wheel. You've heard of these, right? My job is business applications. I'm not doing research. I'm not writing the next programming language. I'm delivering value to my customers in a timely manner. So I'm going to leverage as many tools as I can to get that job done. I'm not going to, I could write my own responsive design framework. I can use media queries and do all that crazy stuff, or I can just say, install Bootstrap, and I have it. And I just have to use the few little CSS selectors to make the stuff all work. I also use the same little Bootstrap widgets and all that stuff. So, I really enjoyed I see them in here, the UCSF student information systems, because it was very out of the box. And it's like, yes, it's utilitarian. It doesn't need to be super pretty selly. Very easy, find the button, click on it, very obvious what's there. So that's how I felt, at least for the first version of this, was to be quick and to do something like that. I used an existing server we had. That's why it's kind of got kind of a weird URL, APPL. We just I didn't want to set up a whole new server. We just kind of hitchhiked along on another server that was already out in the world. Use Bootstrap for the UI, like I mentioned. Just change a few colors and fonts. We used, for us, we do .NET technology, jQuery does some of the little magic that you see, and things like that. So at first I was going to do like, I want to do a RESTful API. I totally want to, just do like some kind of coolant framework and just do JSON calls and get the data and display it. But then it was like, it was starting to get hard. It was like, well, I need a templating engine, but I'm not familiar with any. And so it's like, you know what, I just changed gears and just made everything render on the server side and just render out static pages. So I got a goal for a 2.0. So that's it. Time to ship it, right? So I had a coworker who told me this quote a while back. Sometimes you got to shoot the engineer and ship it, right? If you got some software engineers in here, I could work on the same thing for the rest of my life because I can always make it better, right? It's never good enough, but at some point you have to say, that's it. Cut it off, get it out the door. Let's get some use on it. Don't overthink it. What I kept hearing from our graphic designer especially was like, anything is better than what we have now. Try to load the PDF on your phone. It's impossible. If you pinch and zoom, if you can even read the PDF. At first that was the goal, was to like, let's replace the PDFs that we have up there. But then it was like, there was a need for the PDF. The PDF was a weak at a glance view. But, once I put all that data onto the phone and showed it to our nutritionist, he just scrolled for days and couldn't find what you wanted. So we had to go to a 1 day at a time view, which is still a ton of data. And he said, okay, look, we're going to have to slim down our goals here. We're going to have to supplement the PDFs. We're going to have to launch it next to it. And that was just fine because the PDF serves a need. And the big need for that is some students have allergies. They can't eat certain things. And so what they do is they use the PDFs to kind of map their course, because there's 4 different dining commons and 2 or 3 of them are pretty close together. So they can actually kind of plot their course for the week. And that's a very useful feature for that. So for now, we left the PDFs in place. They're still manually generated, but now we got this new thing to come alongside of it. So part of that, make a 1.0 version. Okay, fine, let's go for it. Let's do it. This is the GitHub pull request. So May 13th, 2015, got it up, deployed it to our site, didn't say anything. Emailed a few people. Hey, give it a try, right? Nice soft launch, right? Hey, yeah, go ahead and share this out. No problem. Check it out. Make sure it doesn't blow up. A couple days later, Webmaster threw a link on the website. Hey, check out our new interactive dining commons. It wasn't really. We did kind of a nice little soft launch, and it went well. And then later, like maybe a few weeks later, they actually like put a blog post out about it, and things like that. So, because like near the end, when we were like at this point, not yet quite launching, we were kind of like, I would sit there for half an hour and we'd be like, let's tweak the font a little bit. Oh, go to 15, go to 14. We kept tweaking it, and it's just like, oh, it's just like, like I said, you just failure to launch. And my graphic artist basically, I don't have the exact quote in the email, but it was great. He basically said something along the lines of, don't worry about it. It looks good. It is light years ahead of anything we have. Don't even ask me for any more input. Just ship it. Because I kept going and say, you know what, let me get your expertise on this look and feel. So that was kind of, okay, let's go, let's do it. So I'll give it real quick. There's the full desktop view. So basically we have 4 dining commons. So great, we have 4 columns going top to bottom. And then in each one of these has and then, for example, you see breakfast is not served today at Ligero. So that's all data-driven. Now, at first, it was kind of configured, but then later we said, well, if there's no data for it, this is what it means. And so then we show like a little box like that. This is the other breakpoints for Bootstrap. So when you hit this so when you look at the phone console to the actual screen up, and you just cut we actually have dining chairs at 3 of the dining commons. There's a separate separate site. We can link to it, but I added a little icon here, and it just shows one of the screenshots of one dining common. This was actually taken a few weeks ago. We have like summer conferences going on, so a lot of kids out there waiting for one of the dining commons. The dining cams are used so you can see if the line is big or not. So I'm getting down to the end here. So basically, what's the future hold? And also a little bit of the present, which I talked about with we've already done a few little minor enhancements over time. Did I not? That's my manager right there. So so right here, you look at the website, and at first it was kind of, well, how can we get that out there, right? Real quick, I don't have a database for it, all this stuff. So I did a little trick with little text files and a shared drive, and it pulls it up there. So right now we're actually in the middle of writing a database administration screen where they can plug in the hours and they could do whole date ranges and things like that. And so then what happens is that was a little bit later enhancement. And then, yeah, basically we're going to make it a lot more robust for the end users to use. Let me go over to the future. So basically, we launched just over a year ago. I looked at the stats just recently, and we get about 15,000 to 20,000 page visits a month. I was trying to get uniques, but the analytics didn't really give that to me. Plus, uniques is kind of hard to say, right? That's cookie based, and some people block cookies and things like that. So it's actually, we still get a lot of hits on the old PDFs, but a lot of it we figure people bookmark those PDFs, and then also a lot of those apps scrape those PDFs. So it's hard to say what the adoption rate is, but it's pretty heavily used as far as I can tell. We didn't do any kind of like UX focus groups and things like that. Like I said, the focus was just to do something kind of almost quick and dirty and get it out the door. And then later when we got time, when we got some other fires to put out, we can circle back and kind of make this stuff kind of nice. So we have a huge list of things we want to do. As you saw, there's like a provide feedback link. And like one person said, hey, can I search for food? That was a request that came in. You know, we have like really cool things like we want to do. You know, I want to rewrite kind of like how it accesses the data, because like I said, it was pretty quick, and it's like when you get done, you're like, oh, I wish I did it totally differently, you know? So at some point, we'll be able to go back and kind of do a 2.0 version, probably make it all Ajaxified and all that kind of stuff. We want different kinds of views, like maybe a single week for a dining common, you know, so that way there's 7 boxes instead of 4, but it'll be just for one dining common. One idea that we had was to, you know, if breakfast is done, we'll just make that kind of hide automatically, you know, like a big old list here. Oh, one cool thing to do is like favorite items, right? But then it's like, oh, maybe the student can log in and they say, you know, I want when there's eggs Benedict. I want to know when that comes on the menu, you know, and to be notified. So I've actually had a lot of internal staff requests for that feature. Maybe some other preferences they could save, like maybe preferred dining common, things like that. So it'd be kind of cool to make it all part of like a login system so you can save your preferences. So this is all like high in the sky stuff. Better sorting and filtering would be nice. It's kind of hard to do on the phone. Go back to the screenshot real quick. So if you see here, it gets rid of all the other stuff. So you pick one dining common, one meal, and on the phone, it turns into the little, on the far right there, it turns into the little hamburger menu. And so then that kind of expands. So it's kind of hard to work on, but you know, it'd be kind of nice to have in the future to make something a little more friendly. So big, huge list of things to do. So basically the conclusion is, you know, use simple tools, small team. You'd be able to take, take anything that's kind of nasty and hard to use, and you can totally make it easy and friendly to use. Really, it probably took 2 months part-time work to get the first version of this launched. Like I said, it was almost like the first day I had like the proof of concept working, and then after that it was just the final tweak. So, it's easy to do. You can, my goal is hopefully that you're inspired by this talk and maybe go back and do your thing. I mean, I loved UCLA's API stuff. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just like exactly that Swagger stuff. That's I want to do all that for all this kind of stuff, and then be able to actually give an API out to the students to use, as long as mine have to use it as well. I mean, that's what I'd love to do. But again, I'm Gary Scott. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I love to talk about this stuff. So my email is on there, and you know, if you work on something in your place and maybe fix up your menu, I'll check it out. So if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot. We have 20 minutes, so.